Very good evening to all of you. So we are back again with our weekly class. So today, last we have done till aphorism 58. So today we will start with aphorism 59. Today we will understand the primary and secondary action because in these aphorisms, Dr. Hahnemann will tell us about the primary action and secondary action. It is a very important principle to understand in homeopathy. Otherwise also, because this primary and secondary action, we see it everywhere we see it, but we don't recognize it, we don't understand primary and secondary action because we don't know much about it. So today we will first Dr. Henneman will give some examples of the primary and secondary action. Then we will also discuss that how practically we also see these things, because many times when we will go ahead and talk about the homeopathic aggravation, the aggravation which happens after the right constitutional medicine in some patients, it is also based on this primary and secondary action. So in these aphorisms, and we will try to do till aphorism, I think 65. We will try that we if we can go up till there, aphorism 65. And okay, so because when we are analyzing the cases, once you have given the medicine, whether the medicine is right or wrong, we can get that idea if we understand the primary action and secondary action. Okay, so we will start with it, and as we go ahead we will discuss more about it. So we'll start with aphorism 59. Important symptoms of persistent disease have never yet been treated with such palliative antagonistic remedies. Without the opposite state, a relapse, indeed a palpable aggravation of the malady occurring a few hours afterward. So, in the last time, we left at the antipathic treatment. The antipathic treatment where the medicines are given in an antipathic way. It is not homeopathic, it is an completely opposite and antipathic way. What is antipathic way? That if there is pain, a medicine is given which basically decreases the pain. Last time also I told you that this might seem logical that that okay, if there is pain, so we should give something to reduce the pain. But how it affects is this is given in this aphorism and the aphorisms ahead. So indeed, so he's saying that with the antagonistic remedies, antagonistic means antipathic remedies, remedies which has an opposite action towards the action of the body. Whatever the body is stating, whatever the state body is producing, these remedies, they have an antagonistic and opposite action to that thing. Okay. So he says that it is, now he's talking about the observation. He's talking about the experience. That in experience, it is seen that by giving such palliative treatment, these antagonistic remedies, when we give this thing, so we always see that a relapse comes. When a painkiller is given, after few hours, after few days, the pain will come back. So that amelioration only remains for few hours or in some cases for few days. For a persistent tendency to sleepiness, now he's giving few examples which have been seen in common practice when these kind of medicines are given. For a persistent tendency to sleepiness, the people who have this tendency for sleepiness during the day, the physician prescribed coffee. So the physician, they used to prescribe coffee to get away with this sleepiness, whose primary action is to enliven. It creates an alert state. It gives energy to the patient, And when it had exhausted its action, the day's somnolence increased. That sleepiness during the day, it keeps on increasing. The action of the coffee, it keeps on decreasing. The person starts with 1 cup of coffee a day, then he increases it to 2 cups of coffee a day, then to three, then to four. Even with 4 cups, he does not feel much energized. So he's giving the things which we usually experience. For frequent waking at night, the people who wake frequently at night, he gave in the evening, without heeding the other symptoms of the disease, opium. So, without understanding the other symptoms, without giving importance to the other symptoms, just because there was this sleeplessness, the physician they used to give opium, which by virtue of its primary action produced the same night stupefied dull sleep. Okay. So, this sleep is not a healthy sleep, but it is more of a stupefied sleep. The patient goes into the sedation state. But the subsequent nights were still more sleepless than before. But the sleeplessness increases after this kind of thing. To chronic diarrhea, he opposed, without regarding the other morbid signs, the same opium, whose primary action is to constipate the bowels. Even in the cases of chronic diarrhea, the physician they used to give, without understanding the other disease symptoms, they also used to give opium. Again, the primary action of the opium is to constipate the bowels. And after a transient stoppage of the diarrhea, it subsequently became all the worse. So for some time, the diarrhea will decrease or will stop. But when the action of the opium will wear off, it will become more worse. Violent and frequently recurring pains of all kinds he could suppress with opium. Again, for the pains which were violent and they were recurring again and again, opium was prescribed for but a short time. But the suppression or the palliation by opium was only for short time. And then these pains, they then always returned in greater, often intolerable severity. But they will come more violently, they will become more intolerable, or some much worse affection came in their stead. Or instead of the pains, some more worse affection, some more worse symptoms will come. For nocturnal cough of long standing, the ordinary physician knew no better than to administer opium. Again, for nocturnal cough, the children or the people who used to have cough in the night, opium was administered to them, whose primary action is to suppress every irritation. So, opium has this primary action that whenever there is some irritation in the body, in the physiological part, it suppresses it. The cough would then perhaps cease the first night, but during the subsequent nights, it would be still more severe. And if it were again and again suppressed by this palliative in increased doses, fever and nocturnal perspiration were added to the disease. So, if the doses were increased, because it is always a case that if you give some amount of some medicine in an antipathic way, the next time the aggravation is so severe that the same amount of medicine will not work. You have to give a more larger dose of the medicine. So when they used to do this and try to give more severe, more bigger doses of opium, then additional symptoms will start coming along with the cough, like fever or nocturnal the perspiration in the night and the sleep. Then weakness of the bladder with consequent retention of urine was sought to be conquered by the antipathic work of cantharides. In weakness of bladder, where the urine was retained, they used to prescribe cantharides to stimulate the urinary passages, whereby evacuation of the urine was certainly at first affected. So there was no doubt that the cantharides, these medicines, they will affect, or they will, in the primary action, they will give relief. But thereafter, the bladder becomes less capable of stimulation and less able to contract, and paralysis of the bladder is imminent. But when this kind of treatment was continued for some time, a complete paralysis of bladder will happen with large doses of purgative drugs and laxative salts, which excite the bowels to frequent evacuations. It was sought to remove a chronic tendency to constipation. So for the constipation, they would give laxatives or some kind of purgatives so that the frequent evacuations can happen. But in the secondary action, the bowels became still more confined. They will become more constipated. The intestinal, the peristaltic movement will become more slower, more dull. The ordinary physician seeks to remove chronic debility by the administration of wine. The people who used to feel weak chronically, did not had much energy mentally or physically, the physician would prescribe them wine, which, however, stimulates only in its primary action. And hence the forces sink all the lower in the secondary action. But when the secondary action comes, the vital force becomes more low, their debility will increase, their weakness will increase. By bitter substances and heating condiments, he tries to strengthen and warm the chronically weak and cold stomach. Okay? The people who had this problem of indigestion, so they will prescribe some kind of bitter substances or some herbs or some condiments. But in the secondary action of these palliatives, which are stimulating in their primary action only, the stomach becomes yet more inactive. So the stomach will become more inactive in the secondary action. Long-standing deficiency of vital heat and chilly disposition ought surely to yield to prescriptions of warm baths. The people who used to feel very chilly, the people who used to feel this deficiency of the vital heat, they were prescribed warm baths to take bath in the warm water, sit in the warm water and take the bath. But still more weak, cold and chilly do the patient subsequently become. And this is a very common thing, if on a cold day you take a shower with warm water, after that you start feeling more cold because in the secondary action the body feels more cold. It is very commonly seen. If you put your hand in a very 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 cold water and when you bring that hand out, the you will start feeling heat in the hand and the kind of burning in the hand. So there is always a secondary action. We will talk about this thing that the primary action is on the body and the secondary action is by the body. This is the whole process which we need to understand. Severely burnt parts feel instantaneous alleviation from the application of cold water. If there is some burn on some part and you put it in the cold water, you will feel an instantaneous relief. But the burning pain afterwards increases to an incredible degree, and the inflammation spreads and rises to a still greater height. But afterwards, the inflammation will start spreading, and you will see an intense increase in the burning pain by means of the sternutatory remedies. Sternutatory remedies are which basically excite the sneezing from the nose, by means of the sternutatory remedies that provoke a secretion of mucus, coryza, with stoppage of the nose of long standing is sought to be removed. But it escapes observation that the disease is aggravated all the more by these antagonistic remedies. Many people have this tendency to, some inhaler, they will keep smelling so that the this nose it remains open because they have this tendency for blockage of the nose. They might start it with once or twice in a day, but then it keeps on increasing. I have seen many patients who after every 5 minutes or 10 minutes they're doing this thing, they're smelling it to open the nose. Every 5 or 10 minutes they are doing it because the action remains so small and the disease is increasing. After every small amelioration, a stronger aggravation is always coming back, and the nose becomes still more stopped by electricity and galvanism. Within their primary action, greatly stimulate muscular action. Chronically weak and almost paralytic limbs were soon excited to more active movements, but the consequence, the secondary action, was complete deadening of all muscular irritability and complete paralysis. In some kind of paresis, some weakness, even nowadays, many medical practitioners they give slight electrical stimulations, to ameliorate the paralysis or the weakness of the limbs. I had a patient. who had multiple sclerosis, and his lower legs were becoming weak. So he had more weakness in his feet and in his calves. There was this difficulty in walking. So he went for this kind of treatment for 15 days and he was feeling very good that I have got my energy back and everything. And then after 15 days, doctor told him to stop. He stopped it. After 5 days, his whole leg, it became kind of paralyzed. He was not able to stand up. He was not able to walk. He was not even able to lift his feet. So when you see these kind of examples, all these words, they start becoming true. You feel the truth about all these things. By venesections, it was attempted to remove chronic determination of the blood to the head. There was this process of venesections for the people who don't know. It is more of bloodletting. They would put some this make a cut somewhere along the vein, and they will let the blood escape from that vein for some time. It was done to remove the congestion of the blood to the head or some part, but they were always followed by greater congestions. So it was always seen that after that, the congestions they used to become more frequent and more violent. Ordinary medical practitioners know nothing better with which to treat the paralytic torpor of the corporeal and mental organs conjoined with unconsciousness. So if some patient had this paralytic torpor means, this confusion and this some kind of unconsciousness of mental part and the corporeal, the physical part, which prevails in many kinds of typhus, in many kind of typhoid fevers. This was a common condition which would come with that. Then with the large doses of valerian. So the physician, they used to give large doses of valerian because this is one of the most powerful medicinal agents for causing animation and increasing the motor faculty. Because whenever the valerian was given, it will increase the animation of the body, it will give energy to the body, it will increase the motor faculty of the body. In their ignorance, however, they knew not that this action is only a primary action, and that the organism after that is past most certainly falls back in the secondary antagonistic action into still greater stupor and immobility. That is to say, into paralysis of the mental and corporeal organs and death. So it was seen many times at that time. You can read about all these things in more detail in the introduction of the Organon, where Dr. Hahnemann has given many cases and many practices which were done at his time. So it was very commonly seen that after prolonged use of valerian, the patients, they used to go directly into a fatal state that the death will occur. They did not see that the very diseases they supplied most plentifully with valerian, in all those diseases where they have given valerian in excessive quantity, which is in such cases an oppositely acting antipathic remedy, most infallibly terminated fatally. So they said that in all those cases, most of those cases, it was seen that they used to terminate into death. The old school physician rejoices that he is able to reduce for several hours the velocity of the small rapid pulse in cachectic patients with the first dose of uncombined purple foxglove. So the patient who were in a state of weakness in a cachexia, where the pulse is very small and rapid, and it is becoming more small, they used to give purple foxglove at that time. So in its primary action, the pulse would become quicker. Its rapidity, however, soon returns. Repeated and now increased doses affect an even smaller diminution of its rapidity, and at length none at all. Indeed, in this secondary action, the pulse becomes uncountable, sleep, appetite, and strength depart, and a speedy death is invariably the result. So, in the secondary action, the pulse will become so rapid, the sleep and strength will decrease, and a speedy death was the result of that, or else it will push the patient into insanity. We have already done when we have done the psychological this how to we have done these aphorisms where Dr. Hahnemann has given this thing that many times the vital force to save the patient from death, in many cases it will transfer the whole disease on the organ of the mind to save the patient. How often, in one word, the disease is aggravated or something even worse is affected by the secondary action of such antagonistic remedies. The old school, with its false theories, does not perceive, but experience teaches it in a terrible manner. So he's saying that in all these cases and all these examples, we have seen so many times what these antagonistic remedies, the remedies which are acting in an antipathic way, how they are basically uh, acting in a very terrible manner, that they are constantly increasing the disease, and we are not able to still learn from that thing. Aphorism 60. If these ill effects are produced, as may very naturally be expected from the antipathic employment of medicines, the ordinary physician imagines he can get over the difficulty by giving at each renewed aggravation a stronger dose of the remedy. So Dr. Hahnemann is saying that when these effects are seen, okay, like the opium was given for sleeplessness, and then sleepiness came, and the next night was more bad. So he's saying that when these effects are seen, that okay, I have given the opium, and next night is more bad, the sleep is more bad. So he said that the physician, he basically imagined that this difficulty, that sleep is more bad, so I will give a more stronger dose. If I have given this much amount of opium, now I will give this much amount of opium. Next night, I will give this much amount of opium. So he said that the physician basically imagined that if I give a stronger dose at a renewed aggravation, that can counter the effect of the symptoms, whereby an equally transient suppression is affected. He said, okay, the suppression will be affected, but it will be of transient state. Transient means very small, for a very small time. And as there then is a still greater necessity for giving ever increasing quantities of palliative, there ensues either another more serious disease or frequently even danger to life and death itself. So if we are giving ever increasing quantity of palliative, so either the vital force will push the disease to a more deeper state, or it will become a more danger to the life. If it cannot, the vital force cannot push it to more deeper state, then the danger of life will come, but never a cure of a disease of considerable or of long standing. They said that in these cases, you cannot see any cure, never a cure by this kind of treatment. And it has never been seen. When we started with the Organon, I gave you a simple example, which we can see in our experience, that once a medicine starts, some allopathic medicine is given, or some kind of painkiller is given, or some this thing, does it keep on increasing or decreasing during the day time period? At that time also, I asked you that you can look around yourself, you can look around the patients, you can look around the family members or relatives who are taking these kind of medications over a long time of period, whether their medicines are increasing or decreasing. Because if medicines are increasing, that simply means the disease is increasing. If the power of the medicine is increasing, if someone was taking zero point 0.5 mg, then it increases to 1 mg, then 2 mg, then 5 mg. That means the disease is increasing. That is the same thing which is given in this aphorism, that we are trying to palliate the disease. So over a long time of period, if the medicine is increasing, that means we are basically, kind of suppressing the disease, palliating the disease, and in a secondary action, the disease is basically increasing. Had physicians been capable of reflecting on the sad results of the antagonistic employment of medicines? Very beautiful word Dr. Hahnemann has written, reflecting. Reflection or reflecting, this is a quality which every physician should have. Although every human being should have it, but at least as a physician, we should have this tendency or capability to reflect. Reflect means what is happening, why it is happening, and what I can understand from this thing. When we are thinking about something, when we are thinking about something which is happening in front of it, you know, we need to stop sometimes in our life, in our day, and think about something, that how this is happening and why this is happening, what is wrong or what is right in this thing. So that is what Dr. Hahnemann is saying, that had physicians, though all those physicians who experience this thing, if they have reflected on the sad results, if they have just for some time, if they would have thought about this thing, even the results were bad, but if they would have thought about it, sad results of the antagonistic employment of medicines, they had long since discovered the grand truth. He's saying that even if you, if they have, would have, so for some time they would have stopped and thought about these sad results rather than defending the results. They would have just stopped and thought about it. Long back, they would have discovered the grand truth. What is that truth? That the true radical healing art must be found in the exact opposite of such antipathic treatment. He's saying that the way we are giving the medicine is basically increasing the disease. So the actual healing art, the actual healing way will be the exact opposite of it. Exact opposite of antipathic treatment. If they would have just thought about it for some time. Antipathic treatment of the symptoms of the disease, they would have become convinced that as a medicinal antagonistic to symptoms of the disease, an antipathically employed medicine is followed by only transient relief, and after that is passed by invariable aggravation. The converse of that procedure will completely opposite of that procedure, the homeopathic employment of medicines according to similarity of symptoms must affect a permanent and perfect cure. In, in an antipathic way, if a patient is not getting sleep, a medicine is given to start the sleep. He's saying that this is antipathic and this is not working. So if they would have exactly done the opposite of that, if a person is not getting sleep and given a medicine which basically produces sleeplessness, they would have come at the homeopathic employment of medicines. The converse of that procedure, the homeopathic employment of medicines, according to similarity of symptom, must affect a permanent and perfect cure. If at the same time, the opposite of their large doses, the most minute doses are exhibited. Now again, they were giving large doses, the doses are becoming large, 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 large. Homeopathy, the doses are becoming small, 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 more minute, more minute. 1 m is more minute than 200, 200 is more minute than 30, 30 is more minute than 6, are exhibited. But neither the obvious aggravation that ensued from their antipathic treatment nor the fact that no physician ever effected a permanent cure of diseases of considerable or of long standing unless some homeopathic medicinal agent was accidentally a chief ingredient in his prescription, nor yet the circumstances that all the rapid and perfect cures that nature ever performed, as Dr. Hahnemann has told in Aphorism 46, were always affected by the supervention upon the old disease of one of a similar character, ever taught them during such a long series of centuries this truth, the knowledge of which one can alone conduce to the benefit of the sick. So he's saying that neither their results taught them this thing, neither this fact that by using this kind of treatment, no cure is coming out of it. So let's, at least start to find something which can give a permanent cure. Even that fact did not convince them to find something, which can give rapid and perfect cure. And neither they have seen in the nature that accidentally some cures which have been happening in the nature, that they were always produced by a similar character. He said that if they would have reflected upon these things, if they would have thought upon any of this point, they could have hit upon this truth of how to cure the diseases, how to cure the sick long, long back. Because these kind of results they were getting from centuries. From the time the medicine was invented, all these things were happening in front of the people. Aphorism 62. But on what this pernicious result of palliative antipathic treatment and the efficacy of the reverse, the homeopathic treatment depend, is explained by the following facts, deduced from manifold observations, which no one before me perceived, though they are so very palpable and so very evident, and are of such infinite importance to the healing art. So now he's telling about this, going to tell in the next aphorism about this primary action and secondary action. So he's saying that although we can see that these all bad results or sad results of the antipathic treatment are coming from the same procedure, same phenomena, and in homeopathic treatment, the cure is also coming from the same phenomena. And there are so many examples written in the medicinal philosophy, medicinal books about these things. But he said that no one before me understood this thing. And he's going to explain it in the coming aphorisms. And he says that it is of infinite importance if you want to heal the patient, if you want to cure the patient, that we need to understand this phenomena. Every agent that every agent that acts upon the vitality, every medicine deranges more or less the vital force. He said that what what substance do we call the medicine? The first thing is this. What are the substances which we call the medicine? Any of that substance which has the power to alter the state of health of the individual. In whatever state of health I am, there should be power in any substance to alter that thing. So that we call as the medicine. So every medicine, every agent, every medicine, they basically act upon the vitality and deranges more or less the vital force. So whatever the state vital force is in, the medicine basically it deranges it in a way and causes a certain alteration in the health of the individual for a longer or a shorter period. And there is always an alteration in the health, either for a longer period or a shorter period. So this action of the medicine upon the individual, this is termed as the primary action. This is the primary action. So whenever the medicine is acting upon the body in whatever way it is acting, if in a sleepless person it is causing sleepiness, that is the primary action of the body. If in a sleepless person it is causing more sleeplessness, that is also primary action of the body. So whatever action a medicine is producing on the body, it is termed as the primary action. Although a product of the medicinal and vital powers conjointly, it is principally due to the former power. He's saying that this action is basically a conjoint action of medicine and the vital force. But this action is principally because of the power of the medicine. The stimulation of the medicine, the force it produces some symptom, but basically, chiefly, it is the force of the medicine, it is the power of the medicine. To its action, our vital force endeavors to oppose its own energy. And the function of the vital force is to oppose it. Whatever the primary action comes, the vital force will always create a opposite action to that thing. This resistant action is a property, is indeed an automatic action of our life preserving power. This reaction is a very natural phenomenon of vital force of general organism. There is always a resistance in us. towards anything which is coming from outwards towards us, we always produce resistance. We always produce resistance to it. For example, there is a cold atmosphere. Our body starts to shiver to produce more heat. So that cold air, that chilliness is basically affecting on our body in a primary action, and our body is always resisting by an opposite action towards it. So this resistant action is a property. It is a property. Property of whom? Of the life preserving power of our vital force, which goes by the name of secondary action or counteraction. So this opposite action of the vital force of the organism towards the primary action is known as the secondary action. It is very simple. Okay? So whenever something affects on us, whatever it produces in us, it is primary action. The cold air came, it produces chilliness in me. That is primary action of the cold air. Then my body starts to shiver and starts producing heat internally. And after some time, I will not feel chilly. So that is a secondary action of my body towards that chilliness. So this is the primary action, the action of the medicinal agent, and completely opposite is the secondary action, the action of the organism of the or the vital force. So during the primary action of artificial morphic agents, our medicines, on our healthy body, as seen in the following examples, our vital force seems to conduct itself merely in a passive receptive manner. So when the primary action is going on the body, the vital force takes it as in a very receptive manner. It is very passive. It lets that medicine to act in any way it wants to act on the body, and appears, so to say, compelled to permit the impressions of the artificial power acting from without to take place in it and thereby alter its state of health. And it gives the permission to that medicinal force to act upon it. Whatever the action of the medicinal substance is, the vital force basically lets or gives the permission to that artificial power, to that medicinal power to act upon it and alter the state of health. It then, however, appears to rouse itself again, as it were, and to develop. But in the secondary action, it rouses itself, gathers that energy, you know, and then it develops two conditions, two states. The first A, the exact opposite condition of the health. Either whatever the action was, it will produce an exact opposite condition, the counter action, the secondary action. To this effect, primary action produced upon it, if there be such an opposite, and that is in a great degree, as was the effect primary action of the artificial morphic agent. So if the action of the morphic agent was completely opposite, for example, again, I will take the same example. The patient was suffering from sleeplessness. We gave him a medicine which produces sleep in the primary action. So the vital force, it gave the permission to the opium to affect it in a way that opium is supposed to affect. If 100 people are given opium, in almost all of the 100 people, it will produce that kind of sleepiness. Okay. So it let the medicine show its action on the body, perform its action on the body in the primary action. But in the secondary action, because it was an opposite, so it will produce a counter action. It will rouse itself again and produce a counter action that in as great a degree as was the effect. And it will be an equal and opposite effect of the artificial morphic medicine or medicinal agent on it, proportionate to its own energy. So whatever the amount of the energy was put into the primary action, the same amount of the energy will be put into the secondary action. Or B, in the B part, if there be not in the nature a state exactly the opposite of the primary action, it appears to endeavor to indifferentiate itself, that is to make its superior power available in the extinction of the change wrought in it from without by the medicine, in the place of which it substitutes its normal state or secondary action or curative action. Now, if it is not given, he's saying that in the nature, if it cannot produce a, if it does not have in it the opposite state, if there be not in the nature a state exactly the opposite of the primary action, it appears to endeavor. So if in the nature there is no opposite state available which it can produce, it appears to endeavor in differentiate itself. It basically indifferentiate itself from the disease part. That is to make its superior power available in the extinction of the change wrought in it. So whatever the change was produced in it, it will basically try to remove that thing from the body. For example, if you are completely healthy, and I give you opium, you don't have sleeplessness, but you are healthy, you have a good sleep. I will give you sleep opium. You will start feeling more sleepy. You will start feeling more sleepy. But when the secondary action will come, the body will bring you back to the normal state. So if you are healthy, it will bring you back to the normal state. It will not produce sleeplessness in you. The people who are not familiar with sleeplessness in their system, the state of sleeplessness is not there. So it will not produce sleeplessness in them, but it will cure whatever the action was made on it. For example, you are not feeling weak, you are not feeling debilitated, okay, but you just had a glass of wine. That glass of wine will produce, some kind of dullness, some kind of inebriation for some time in its primary action. But when the vital action force will act upon in the secondary action, it will just remove the effect of it and bring you back to the state of health. So it basically produces the secondary action in two ways. If it does not know the opposite state, if it does not have the opposite state in itself, it will just bring back the health where the patient was. So this phenomena we see in the provings, the second part. We see it in the provings. And the first part we see in the antipathic mode of treatment, how it is reacting to it. Examples of A are familiar to all. A hand bathed in hot water is at first much warmer than the other hand that has not been so treated. That is primary action. Like we have done that if you put a hand in a hot water, is at first much warmer than the other hand. So if you see that the other hand, this will be more warmer. The hand put in the warm water because of the primary action of the water on the hand. But when it is withdrawn from the hot water and again thoroughly dried, and if you dry it, it becomes in a short time cold and at length much colder than the other hand. This is a very, when we were children, we used to do this kind of thing, like now this hand has become cold. We have all seen this example. A person heated by violent exercise. If you have done some exercise, so you are heated because of the exercise. This is the primary action of exercise on the person. Is afterwards affected with chilliness and shivering in secondary action. Afterwards, when the perspiration is, it subsides and the body, so you feel an extraordinary, more towards the chilliness. You will start feeling more towards even the fan, it will appear more cold to you. The normal air will appear more cold to you. To one who was yesterday heated by drinking much wine, primary action, today every breath of air feels too cold. The same way which I told you, the counteraction of the organism, the secondary action. An arm that has been kept long in very cold water is at first much paler and colder in the primary action than the other, than the other arm. But removed from the cold water and dried, it subsequently becomes not only warmer than the other, but even hot, red, and inflamed. So if you put your arm in an icy cold water or a hand in an icy cold water for a longer time, you will see that it will become more pale, more cold than your other hand. But after some time, the same hand It will start becoming more red, more in hot. Inside you will start feeling some kind of burning. Excessive vivacity follows the use of strong coffee. When someone has a strong cup of coffee, they feel so energetic, they feel so vivacious inside, so happy. Spirits are very high. But sluggishness and drowsiness remain for a long time afterwards. But afterwards, the drowsiness will be for a long, long time. If this be not always again removed by short time by imbibing fresh supplies of coffee. And when this usually happens, that the person he again goes and takes another cup of coffee. After the profound stupefied sleep caused by opium primary action, the following night will be all the more sleepless, like we have discussed. After the constipation produced by the opium primary action, the diarrhea ensues, secondary action, and after purgation with medicines that irritate the bowels, constipation of several days duration ensues the secondary action. Again, we have seen this, we have talked about it. And in like manner, it always happens after the primary action of a medicine that produces in large doses a great change in health of a healthy person. That its exact opposite. When, as has been observed, there is actually such a thing is produced in the secondary action by our vital force. So again, these are the examples which he has given about the primary action and secondary action, which we usually see in our day-to-day life, to tell us that how the secondary action of the body, the secondary action of our vital force comes to the primary action. So we will stop at this point on this aphorism. And from because from the next aphorism, he will, Dr. Haneman, he will start telling us how to use this thing, the same law, the same phenomena in a homeopathic way. And that also he will start with the examples which we have already been seeing around us. And then we will come to the medicinal part, that how or what kind of medicines we need to choose. Okay. So if you have you n- before we meet next week, please go through these aphorisms. Why I'm with few aphorisms, I always tell that go through these aphorisms once again, because they are going to be the building blocks of our understanding of homeopathic philosophy. All these examples, they are happening around us. If you go through these examples again and again, if you understand these examples again and again, you will start seeing those things. The people who drink tea or coffee, they now can start relating with these examples. But yes, after some time I need a cup of tea because I feel drowsy. Now that drowsiness is because of the secondary action of the body. We had a cup of tea or coffee to remove the drowsiness, to get active. That was the action, primary action of the tea or coffee on us. And in this secondary action, after a few hours, you again, the body starts asking for one more cup of tea or coffee, because it is going back to the original state. And over a time of period, over years, you will see that your cup of coffee or tea in a day are increasing. If you needed initially, you needed just one cup of coffee in a day, or two cups of, or one cup of tea in a day. Then it became two in morning, and then in evening. Then it became three, after lunch also, and then in the evening. Then it became four in between at 11 or 12 a.m. You will always feel that it is increasing. So we are giving increased doses. The body is producing increased secondary reactions to that thing, because the tea and coffee which we take are very in a very small quantity actually. But the medicines which we take, they're very strong things. They're very strong. So these examples we can understand. The example of warm shower, on a cool day, you take a warm shower, and if you come back, the same air, you know, even now nowadays in summers, if the fan is going on or air condition is going on. Many times you will see that you are going from an air conditioned room into to take a shower, and after taking a warm shower, when you come into the same air conditioned room, you feel more cold. The same air appears to be more cold. Very common example. That is the secondary action of the body. So if we start understanding this primary and secondary action in a very small examples that are happening around us, then we can understand that how the body basically reacts. You know, so please go through these aphorisms once again. If you don't, there is some misunderstanding, or if there is some part you are not able to understand, you can message me. You can message Dr. Jonkol, the doctors who are in Thailand, or you can message directly in the group, and we will discuss that in before the next class. Before starting the next part, we will discuss it.